Alvina, go ahead.
Yes, hi, good afternoon, and thank you all for joining us today for the Eviction Diversion Rapid Rehousing Rental Assistance Training. Adam, would you like to kick us off?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Adam Schaefer. I'm a Deputy Associate Director in the Division of Housing Stabilization at DHCD. Give a quick overview of what mostly we'll be talking about today. For some of you, this will be a repeat of what you've seen before, but we'll give a quick overview of the Eviction Diversion Initiative Roadmap and the eviction moratorium, and talk a little bit about the rapid rehousing rental assistance programs, community partners we're working with, the role of the DHCD homeless coordinators, and then finally with the launch date, and have some time for questions at the end. So for some of you, you've seen this chart a few times. For households that are experiencing a housing crisis, we're trying to create as many entries into supports as possible. So the one that you might be most familiar with, if you've driven down the Mass Pike or on the highway lately, is calling 211, and we've been partnering with 211 to help refer folks to the wealth of providers out there, including many of you all, to help folks navigate resolutions to their housing crises. From 211, we see people often referred to HCECs, rapid PERMA, and local rental assistance, as well as community mediation, legal help, and upstream TPP. These are for folks that need a little bit additional assistance beyond just RAP. Then hopefully in many cases, we'll see a tenant or landlord-tenant agreement and the tenancy preserved for those folks that do end up in the court process. See ways for folks to get referred back to TPP, back to RAF, back to other agencies. And then finally, our focus for today is for households that have lost their housing, how we can, we'll be talking about how we're thinking about rapidly rehousing those evicted tenants and other eligible parties. So again, eviction moratorium, as all of you I'm sure are aware, the eviction moratorium and the state eviction moratorium ended on October 17th, though there is a national eviction moratorium that exists through December 31st, 2020. This won't be the focus of our conversation today, but just want to make sure you are aware. This doesn't prevent landlords from issuing notices to quit. The national moratorium doesn't prevent landlords from issuing notices to quit, but does halt the actual evictions for non-payment of rent. And tenants are protected if they give their landlord a written declaration on a specific form with some certification. So with that, I will turn it over to Alvina to talk
Okay,
about a strategic prevention initiative.
wonderful. Thank you, Adam, very much. So our prevention initiative through the rapid rehousing programs. The rapid rehousing rental assistance programs consist of SPI, which is the Strategic Prevention Initiative, METAR, which stands for Massachusetts Emergency Transitional Assistance Reserve, and Home Base. And many of you are very familiar with Home Base. To participate in SPI, METAR, as well as Home Base, an applicant would have to apply for EA, that's emergency assistance. They would do that by calling our toll-free number, which is placed on our website. And at the conclusion of the presentation, I'll provide that toll-free number as well. If an applicant is determined ineligible for emergency assistance, but they meet the 115% of the federal poverty threshold, they would be eligible to participate in SPI. And they would likely be receive rental assistance for housing and non-housing needs. With METAR, again, the loss of housing or their rental assistance would need to be based on It is COVID related. Obviously, METAR would be rental assistance for COVID related cases. And for individuals that participate or families that participate in METAR, these families would need to be determined EA eligible. The families will also need to be new to the emergency assistance program and have agreed not to enter shelter and or to participate in housing stabilization services long term. Once again, home base, that is our front door rental assistance program for the emergency assistance program. And once a family is determined eligible for EA, the household will be able to receive rental assistance which also includes the housing stabilization services. Next slide, please. So to access rapid rehousing rental assistance programs, as I mentioned, a family must apply for EA. Starting with the column marked SPI, if a household is ineligible for EA, therefore they're not eligible for emergency assistance, but they meet the EA income and asset limits, and the asset limit is $5,000. This family would be referred to SPI, and they may be eligible to receive up to $3,000 for rental assistance. With METAR, the household must be determined eligible for emergency assistance. And as I mentioned, that they need to be new to the system, that they're not known to EA, either by entering shelter and or participating in home base in the past, and that they can afford their rent going forward. That benefit is up to $10,000. Home base is our traditional home base program. And again, once a family is determined EA eligible, the family actually declines service and they do accept stabilization. They are eligible up to $10,000 as well to rapidly rehouse or to sustain their current living situation. And our last result is once a family is determined eligible, and they decline home base because they feel it's just not a good fit for them, then they can simply choose to enter EA. So any of our families that are apply for emergency assistance have the option of either entering shelter and or to be diverted at the front door. Next slide, please.
Actually, Alvina, before you go ahead,
Yes.
there is a question in the chat about what exactly
Sure.
the front door means. So could you just expand on that really quickly before
Thank
we
you.
keep going?
Thank you so much. So what we mean by the front door is that in order for any of the families to participate in rapid rehousing rental assistance, they would need to apply for emergency assistance by calling a toll-free number, and all of our emergency assistance applications are completed remotely at this time. Normally that we're located in 10 offices across the state. So internally, we call that the front door, when someone will walk into a local DTA office and apply for emergency assistance. But since our offices are closed at this time, all of our applications are processed remotely by calling the toll-free number. And as I mentioned, at the end of the presentation, I will document that. I will add the number to the chat. Also, it's an 866 number. The toll-free number is also listed on our website. So the next few slides will be an overview of the SPI program, which is the Strategic Prevention Initiative.
So can you mind spending a few minutes with me so I can try to figure out what I'm doing in ETO? Okay.
Sorry, Alvina, go ahead.
No, that's okay. Adam, could you go back one slide, please? Thank you. So I just want to forewarn folks that some of these slides will be repetitive, and areas where they are, I will take a moment to allow the slide to pause before we proceed to the next slide, but I will not bore you by going over the information several times. So a high-level overview of SPI. Again, with SPI, the primary purpose of the funding is for families that are not eligible for EA. So they will apply for assistance. They may not be eligible at the day of application, but there's a likelihood that the family will be eligible for emergency assistance within a 30-day window. And the purpose of this program is to assist families with sustaining their current housing situation by providing financial assistance for rent, utilities, moving costs, as well as other non-housing needs for these families. If a family receives the $3,000 benefit, this will not count towards their the $10,000 home base and or METAR benefit. So again, it's a preventive rental assistance for families that meet the 115% federal poverty limit, that they're meeting the DTA's asset limit of $5,000. They are considered a household and or a pregnant woman and or they are Massachusetts residents, and they're likely to be homeless within 30 days. So DHCD has, piloted this program in the past. As a result of COVID, the governor has allowed us to expand it to the Lawrence, Worcester, and Springfield offices. Next slide, please. So this is an opportunity to give an example of what a household looks like that are eligible for SPI. And in this case, the family meets the income guidelines, but again, are not eligible for emergency assistance. The family has fallen behind on their rent. They received a 30-day notice to quit. They're unlikely, for whatever reason, ineligible or not eligible for RAF or IRMA. This type of family will be referred to SPI for housing and non-housing financial assistance to receive up to $3,000. Families that participate in SPI, they're all given instructions that if their circumstances change, that they need to contact DHCD immediately and reapply for emergency shelter. Because again, with SPI, these are families that are likely going to be eligible for EA within 30 days if they're not, if their housing situation is not sustainable within that 30 days. Next slide, please. Here's an overview of METAR. And again, METAR is another rapid rehousing rental assistance program for families that are in fact eligible for emergency assistance. But these families choose not to enter shelter and or participate in the housing stabilization services. With METAR, the family will have access to first, last, and security, rental arrearages, and the goal is for the rental arrearages not to be so steep to where they can use the remainder of that $10,000 as a rental stipend moving forward. METAR will in fact cover moving expenses as long as those expenses as long as the move is within Massachusetts. You cannot move out of state. with METAR benefits, and it will pay for utility arrearages as well. As I mentioned previously, that to participate in METAR, the household must meet all of the EA program eligibility criteria. This is the first time participating in the EA program, that their housing instability is due to COVID, and that they're able to demonstrate that they're able to pay their rent moving forward. One of the bullets that are not listed on this page, but it's listed on the next page, is that the landlord must also agree to preserve the tenancy for up to 6 months. Next slide, please. So I'm pausing for a moment because this slide is basically reiterating what we shared on the previous slide in reference to the eligibility, that families are required to meet the EA eligibility as far as income, assets, and the landlord agrees to preserve tenancy for 6 months. Next slide, please. With Homebase, again, most of you may be familiar with Homebase. Homebase is a long-standing rental assistance program that's administered by DHCD for families that are EA eligible, that they completed the EA application and they have been determined eligible. These benefits are up to $10,000, and it covers rental arrearages. You can use this rental assistance to secure new tenancy, rental stipends, moving expenses, and with these moving expenses for Homebase, you can in fact move out of town, as well as furniture and utility arrearages. Next slide, please. So the example that we're sharing here, family is presently living in an apartment. They've experienced a loss of income. The family's fallen behind on rent. A court has issued a judgment for eviction and/or execution. Again, our goal is to preserve tenancies. So often families will, in fact, apply for emergency assistance when they are in the eviction process to prevent evictions. Next slide, please. So this is a very important slide because once again, for a family to be eligible for emergency assistance, that's to enter shelter or to receive diversion rehousing benefits such as Homebase and METAR, they must meet these criteria, which are Massachusetts residency, U.S. residency, that it is a household that consists of a child under the age of 21 or a pregnant individual. Their income must be below 115% of the federal poverty limit, as well as their assets are required to be below $5,000. The qualifier reasons for emergency assistance are fire, flood, natural disaster, eviction, condemnation, foreclosure. In reference to eviction, those evictions would need to be a no-fault eviction. And our definition of no-fault eviction is very different from housing court's no-fault eviction. In short, with DHCD, what we mean by a no-fault eviction is that your eviction is due to the loss of income, whether it's due to the loss of a job or medical reasons, that there's a change in your family household composition, where there may have been 2 adults in the household that were paying rent, and now there's only one. The next criteria would be health and safety, where a housing situation exposes children to a substantial health and safety risk. And then the last is domestic violence. Next slide, please. So we're pleased to announce our community partners and their roles. Mass 211 has been amazing time. They process hundreds of calls every day relating to housing and non-housing needs. 211 has been instructed that to refer families seeking homeless services to DHCD's remote line. If a family's just seeking rental assistance, they will be referred to the RAAs and or the FRCs. But if a family has indicated to 211 that they have immediate need for shelter or that they are homeless or anything along those lines, Mass 211 will in fact give the caller the DHCD's remote line number. And so, but again, if it's just rental assistance that they're, safely housed, but they're having challenges with, financial means to keep their current unit, they'll be referred to the RAAs and the FRC for additional information. Our other community partners, as we have listed here, are the FRCs. The FRCs have partnered with Community Connections. And so Community Connections, in addition to the FRCs, in total, I believe that they have 40 offices in combination statewide to be able to assist families. These folks are on the ground, they have boots on the ground, and they're able to assist families by streamlining applications for DHCD for families that are applying for emergency shelter and or applying for rapid rehousing rental assistance benefits. The RAAs have been instrumental, as well as the HCCs, with administering our RAF program, and they'll continue to play a very vital role. Both the FRCs and the RAAs are participating in intake referral assessment and coordination for our community with the rental assistance and non-housing services. Next slide, please. The homeless coordinator's role is obvious. So the DHCD homeless coordinator's role is to determine EA eligibility. And if families are not eligible for EA, they will refer applicants to RAFT, SPI, as we discussed. If they are eligible for emergency assistance, they'll be referred to METAR, home base, and or shelter if rapidly rehousing families, their family is not an option at that time. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, the SPI was a pilot program that we originally started in Brockton and Boston. We expanded this program to 3 other regions as of November 1st, and METAR will be launched on December 2nd. Next slide. So for your convenience, I'm assuming that Ryan will be sending out a copy of this PowerPoint. For your convenience, we have all the RAAs listed here. Next slide, please. And these are just a few Q&As that people asked in general, but since we have, I believe, over 20 questions in the Q&As, I guess we could go to that. We can start answering those questions.
That sounds good. Let's do that. And yes, I will be posting a PDF of this as well as the recording of this whole training on the website I shared at the beginning of this chat. And I will also put the website in at the end of the chat. It's publicly accessible for anybody that has the link. And so let's get started on the questions. So we already did one. First question is, what does accepting or declining stabilization mean?
Thank you. Good question. So when an applicant is approved for emergency assistance, they have an option of not entering shelter, but to participate in METAR and or home base to be rapidly rehoused. Stabilization services are a case management service that's provided to any approved household that's receiving home base, that the housing case managers will work with these families up to 12 months to help them navigate and to sustain permanent housing. So with METAR, the end of the family is deciding that they do not want the 12 months of stabilization, so therefore they will not be connected with an agency to provide case management services. With home base, the stabilization case management service is a part of the program.
Thank you. Next question, would a family be eligible for SPI even if they have a category of eviction that would preclude them from getting in any type of EA shelter benefits?
Yes, if a family applies for EA and they're denied emergency assistance, but they meet the 115% federal poverty income guideline, they will in fact be referred to SPI for assistance. So they would likely be eligible to receive the $3,000 to assist them with rehousing.
Thank you. Next question about the application for EA. Is there a potential for online applications?
No, unfortunately, all of our applications are done telephonically at this time.
And how does one prove no feasible housing to qualify for EA, but then use home base to look for other housing as they have to be somewhere while they are looking?
So that's a very good question. You have families that are doubled up, and due to health and safety reasons, they need to find another apartment. So, and that's a perfect example that they may be able to remain where they are by being doubled up in that situation temporarily until they're able to utilize the home-based benefits to locate a new apartment. And or they can use the home-based benefits to cohort or to share an apartment with someone else. So they can be really creative with the home-based benefits. Also, often the host family that is allowing our emergency assistance family to remain there, they may have immediate needs as well. So on occasion, we'll be able to give that host family a gift card in the amount of $100 or so to be able to, thank them for allowing the EA household to remain there until they're able to find an apartment. Flexibility there.
Thank you. Next question, really about what the documentation for applying for like METAR or home base. Do they need court documents, a 48-hour notice to quit, or something like that?
So with the EA eligibility, as we spoke about the 4 different criteria, that it's not limited to eviction. It could be, eviction, fire, health and safety, domestic violence. But if we're focused on the eviction process, at this time, the documentation that we're requiring is a judgment from the courts and or a magistrate.
Okay, thanks. Let's keep running through these. Sorry, I lost my place. Are there any additional resources for a tenant who received home base and then became destabilized due to COVID, and they are now facing eviction for non-payment?
Everyone that has participated in the home-based program that are in that particular situation as you described, we are strongly encouraging them to reapply for emergency assistance. Because in most cases, families are eligible, especially if they lost income due to COVID.
Okay, and thank you. And so the next two questions here are basically the same question. So I'll just read them both. Why would somebody be SPI eligible but not RAFT eligible? And then the next one being, can families get SPI after receiving RAFT?
That's a very good question. So, and I did have an example.
And also, sorry, the same question to that goes for METAR as well.
Okay.
So I guess anything that we really talked about here.
Yeah,
then
yeah.
adding in that
So,
RAFT component.
I'll tell you, my goodness, that's just, you have to give me a minute to be able to explain this. So in short, we're hopeful that any of our families throughout our communities that needs any type of rental assistance, we're hopeful that these families will in fact access RAFT first because, RAFT has, the $10,000 benefit. So we're hopeful that that will happen. There will be some cases where a family may apply for RAFT and for whatever reason, they're not eligible, maybe because they've already received RAFT in the past and the anniversary date isn't there, or they, they received maybe $4,000 in RAFT. So they are only eligible up to $6,000. So that family may receive either no RAFT benefits and or a small allotment of RAFT. And so they need that additional $3,000 from SPI. They can certainly apply for EA to see if they fall within that category for SPI. And METAR, if you received RAFT benefits, that RAFT benefit will in fact be counted towards METAR and home base. So you can only receive $10,000 in total annually if you receive RAFT benefits. So that holds true with SPI as well, the $10,000 total.
Thank you. I think that answers several people's questions in here. Next question, in terms of being new to the EA system, I think that was referenced in the METAR slide. What if one member of the household had previously received our EA, but maybe another hasn't? And then to expand on that, does it make sense to deny this benefit to someone who has already used EA years ago?
Right. So when we process an EA application, the EA application is based on the head of the household. So if a family member, you have a, two-parent household, and parent A has already received home base or EA services, but another parent is applying that has not been a part of a previous home base or EA application, and is now applying, we're looking at the head of the household. So just because someone in the household has been a part of EA in the past, that would not make the entire household ineligible if the head of the household is not known to the system or doesn't have a bar from EA.
Thank you. Next question, lost my place. Can a family who is already homeless apply for home base?
Well, the answer to that is yes. Again, if a family's already homeless, we offer everyone that's EA eligible the opportunity to participate in home base, to be able to receive home base benefits as opposed to entering shelter. Even now during this pandemic, we have families that are applied for EA. Once we finish the assessment, it appears as though the family really needs to enter shelter immediately. But because of the fact that they want to ensure social distancing and not entering a shelter setting during this pandemic, many of our families are selecting to participate in home base just for that reason.
Thank you. How can a family demonstrate that they can pay rent moving forward, but if they could potentially be laid off due to COVID or have their hours reduced going forward?
Yeah. So again, we're not, the stakes are not high on that. If a family, again, with the rental stipend, um, a family has the opportunity, for example, if they're approved for METAR and they used $4,000 to pay for the rental arrearage, $6,000 going forward for a rental stipend. If a family is able to demonstrate that along with the rental stipend, that they're able to, pay their portion of the rent going forward, that's it. And so that's self-declared. So there's no like high stakes or criterias on sustainability of rent moving forward. It is self-declared.
Thank you. Does a vehicle or car count as an asset?
Yes, vehicles do count as assets. However, we use the DTA's policy around counting vehicles. And so with that is off the top of my head, just remembering that policy, that the first car is not necessarily countable, but we will count the second car as an asset.
Thank you. The next question is not as much rapid rehousing, but it's in here and it references 211 and concerns that they've been overwhelmed. I don't know if anybody else in here from DHCD is able to talk about improvements to 211.
Yeah, thanks, Ryan. I can address that. So 211 has a policy of returning calls within 24 hours. So someone can stay on the line and be on hold, or they can opt to put their phone number, to give their phone number in and then get a call back from 211 within 24 hours. And they do in fact do that. So we have been working with them on making sure that that's happening and also addressing concerns around language. And there's now an option on 211 for all other languages, press 9, and someone who is not an English or Spanish speaker can immediately get to a person who knows that they need to get a translation service on the line and help with that call. So we've been working consistently with 211 to figure out how to improve that experience. There's now on the wait, if you choose to wait, there's messages on the wait time of, contact your RAA and this is how you do it, contact legal services, this is how you do it.
Thank you, Aviva. Next question involves DHCD homeless coordinators. Have we hired any more to deal with the influx of applications? And if we have this information currently, how many do we currently have?
Yes, so in total, I believe that we have 41 frontline Division of Housing and Stabilization staff to be able to assist with processing emergency assistance applications. That includes both homeless coordinators, supervisory staff, and our very small management team as well. We are very fortunate that our undersecretary did in fact allow us to increase our FTEs in our division to be able to help with the anticipated increase of applications.
Thank you. This also a question around applying for EA. The question is around fillable forms, so I think that means probably more fillable PDFs compared to an online application. Are we going to have any of those available?
Yeah, that's our goal. We've been working with our IT department in that area. I don't have a date or a time frame on when those PDF applications will be made available, but it is in our foreseen future.
Thank you. Do undocumented residents apply for these services? In addition to what if the family is undocumented, the parents are undocumented, but the children are citizens?
Yes, that's a very good question. Thank you. So yes, if parents are undocumented, but the children are born in the States, that the children will in fact render the entire family eligible as long as they meet other EA eligibility criterias. And so I must share, and I probably should have said this earlier on in the presentation, but I have another meeting that I need to attend. My goal is to get through as many questions as possible, but I do have my partner on the line, Adam Schaefer, and I'm sure that he'll be able to answer any questions that you may have. And if not, I will definitely get back to Ryan at a later time.
Don't look at me like that.
Any questions?
Thank you, Alvina. Also for everybody on this call, please remember, and sorry about my dog, please remember to mute your phone. So we're actually getting pretty close to the end of the questions here.
Okay.
Sorry, I also lost my place. Can somebody use EA home-based METAR to stay in their current unit if they are facing eviction?
Yes, they can.
Next one is it still the rule for a court eviction that a stipulation will not satisfy the EA eligibility?
I'm not sure if I understand the question, but I will answer it with that in order to trigger EA eligibility around court evictions, we're looking for a judgment.
I think that probably answers the question. Are all RAAs administering METAR?
No, there's only 5 RAAs at this time that we've identified to administer METAR, but applicants throughout the state will be referred to them and the process will be conducted telephonically.
Okay. I think it looks like I might have missed one. Can someone who has used RAF funding and is EA eligible then apply for home base, or is this another form of commingling funds?
I'm sorry, you have to repeat that. I was
Sorry.
distracted.
Can someone who has used RAFT but is also EA eligible then apply for home base? Is this form of commingling funds okay?
So again, between Raft and home base, there can only be a maximum of $10,000 utilized in rental assistance. So you cannot exceed $10,000. And if you're co-mingling programs, you cannot exceed $10,000.
Okay. Next question. If a family has used RAFT before and the head of household has moved out and now another family is in need to apply for METAR or EA, will that affect the family in need now? So if the head of household has since moved out of the household and now the family needs help, are they eligible?
That family, once again, would be encouraged to apply for emergency assistance and be encouraged to apply for RAFT because, again, I believe the RAFT application as well as the EA application is based on the head of the household who applied at that time. If the family members, as far as EA, if those family members were a part of the emergency assistant application when it was approved, you know, we would look at that. So that's a little complicated, and it's kind of a case by case.
And how are you doing the time?
I have like time for one more question.
Okay. So a specific question. I have a client who has utilized all of her home base $10,000 and does not qualify for RAF. Is there any other type of assistance that can be utilized?
So as far as the Division of Housing and Stabilization, other than, raft and home base, that's all that we have for rental assistance. But that's why it's extremely important that families will reach out to their FRCs, that's the Family Resource Centers in their communities, because often with the Family Resource Center that they're aware of other community benefits that are available, other community rental assistance benefits that are available in the local communities. So thank you all very much for your time. I appreciate the fact that that you extended the invite to allow me to spend some time with you today. If there's any additional questions, I believe that Adam is on and eager to help. Talk to you soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Alvina.
Thank
Adam,
you.
we have a couple more here.
All right.
So the next one is, do both home base and METAR require that the family remain stably housed for at least 6 months?
So as I'm trying to log off, it's only METAR, not necessarily home base.
Thank you. Sorry. For SPI, is it offered to families from all of the cities and towns that normally would be served by the Boston, Brockton, Worcester, Lawrence, Springfield local offices, or just those coming? So is it available statewide, or just those that would normally be served by the Boston, Brockton, Worcester, Lawrence, Springfield local offices?
The benefit is available statewide.
Okay, thank you. And Adam, were you trying to
Down the
speak?
leave button, yes.
Okay. Given several different programs, how do families and individuals know which program to apply for, or does the agency figure that out?
Thankfully, a question that I know the answer to. The agency will help figure that. The families should call 211, or if they're at imminent risk of homelessness, call the 866 number, and the homeless coordinators will help talk to them about what options they have and what programs they may be eligible for. I believe there's a triage tool that they'll be using.
Thank you. Actually, I'm looking for something to answer one of the questions in the chat because we are close to the bottom. So the next question is, do we have access to the slides? If you missed that, yes, I will be, when we do post the video of this, there will also be a PDF copy of this presentation. I will also send out an email to everybody that RSVP'd for this. I know you probably shared it with some coworkers, so please, if you get it, please forward that along, but I will include the link for this and the PDF copy as well in that email, so it'll be in 2 different locations. I'm putting the toll-free number to call in to apply for EA in the chat right now for everybody to get. And I am also, once again, sharing the link to that webpage where all of our previous trainings are posted. This training will be posted, and the next training that we have scheduled for the first week of December on legal services, which is, I'll pull that up real fast. Legal services on the 3rd of December. When that one occurs, that'll also be posted on this website for everybody to see. Does anybody else have any other questions, or did I miss anything? All right, well, thank you all for participating. Right before we leave, I'm putting in my email address as well, in case anybody thinks of any questions after we sign off here. Please feel free to email me directly. I'm sorry, Andrea, did you mention the go live dates for these? Do you mean the like SPI and METAR?
It is 11/1. So SPI has already expanded 11/1. METAR will be December 2nd, and home base is already in process, and we've received the additional funds.
Great, thank you. All right, in the absence of any other questions, thank you all for joining us. Once again, it'll take a little while for us to get downloaded and uploaded onto YouTube, but keep an eye out for the link for this. And thank you all for joining, and have a great day and a great rest of your week.
Thanks, everyone.